welcome to the Pipeline and People podcast powered by Versorix, the show where boutique firm leaders trade less admin for more advisory. Each week, we share actionable tactics to keep your client pipeline full and your team performing at its best. I'm your host, Jaden Parisi. Let's dive in. Today's guest is Zach Oehlman, founder of Learn and Grow Rich, a business development consultancy based on a mission to democratize education, empower people financially, and give business owners the full stack support they need to grow and invest. Zach, welcome. Could you kick us off with a quick look at your background, what led to the creation of your business?
Yeah, so that was eloquently eloquent intro. So thank you for that, Jaden.
Yeah, of course.
So my background is I'm a farm kid from Indiana, and I wanted to be rich. I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to help people. And I didn't know how to do that. And until I picked this book up around finance. It was from Peter Lynch, and I had this idea. He shared this idea that you can make money by investing, and it just fascinated me. And so I went to school, graduated top of my class from IU in finance, graduated in 2008, which was a tough time to be anyone in the world, let alone a finance guy. Went on to work for a private real estate investor, then at the Chicago Board of Trade, and then I finally got my foot in the door at a very advanced consulting firm for private asset valuation. And so worked my way up to one of the best companies in the world there, became a published author, and I hated it. I hated it. I loved it. Don't get me wrong. It was looking back, I would have stayed longer, but I started hanging around these entrepreneurs and they started talking about real estate investing and doing all these other, time freedom and location freedom. And I wanted it so bad. And so I jumped and I quit that job, transitioned over into running my own businesses. And over the last 15 years, I've been running my own businesses and became number two in a direct sales company and just really focused on, I had a really strong background in finance, but my sales and marketing and social skills sucked. And so I spent a lot of time developing those inside of that direct sales company. And that's what we do today. We do full scope consulting and we give away all of our intellectual property just because it's, I see people pay a lot of money for stuff and they're not ready for it. And I want everyone to have access to education. And, there's information's free, right? These days where I'm not gonna, I see people selling all of this information for so much money. And the reality of it is I don't think some of these guys warrant the sticker price. And so we just decided to give it all away, and then we sell the done for you stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So your model covers everything from finance to sales, real estate. Who would you consider your ideal client and how do you help them succeed?
So our ideal client is service-based businesses in the US and Canada that range from $1 to $30 million in gross revenue. They're founder-led CEOs, and they got something that they're selling, a great solution that we can get behind, not just, selling something to make money, but they're actually solving a real problem. And they're great at sales. And so those are all, 20 plus years of experience. That's who I want to work with because that's what I am great at making money in. It's what I made money in. And, the last one I've realized that we just added was they have to be great at sales because if they're not, they can't turn the knob up to scale. And then it just becomes really hard as a finance guy because all I do, I see I've created this business model and this is how we help people is we help them scale and remove themselves from the business. And so we've created this model called F.O.S.M, finance, operations, sales, and marketing. And we see marketing as telling the marketplace what problem you solve, sales as why your solution is the best, operations is the delivering of the solution to solve the problem, and then finance is measuring everything. And so if they don't have a process that is reliable to scale, it just becomes so hard as a finance guy. And so that's how actually our big focus is helping people scale and remove themselves from the day to day. And so as the finance person, we tell them what they need to do and how they need to do it and when. And, we're really, for a lot of these companies, acting as almost like a CEO because a lot of them don't know, right? They don't know what to do. They don't understand budgets. They don't understand plans. They just sort of ended up where they're at by being just pure working their brains out. And so that's what, we put all the pieces together.
That's incredible. So you mentioned you give all your IP for free. How do you balance all of that giving with growing, especially as demand for your services grow?
So I was really big on selling my time. So for 15 years, I sold masterminds. And what I've learned is there's this component of people want to learn, right? Specifically, it was learn how to invest in real estate is what we sold. So it was 20 some $1,000 plus, over the years it increased for education and masterminds. And what I learned was just because somebody can't afford a $20,000 master or education mastermind doesn't mean they're ready for a $20,000 education mastermind. And so what that did was that just put an absorbent amount of stress on me as the one delivering it because I didn't want to trash my reputation. And so what happened was is I was just giving way too much of my time for what they were paying me. And so over the years, as my time becomes more valuable, I become more wise and more experienced. My time becomes dramatically more valuable. And so I didn't want the obligation of having to support new people on a high ticket offer. And so I just said, I'm just going to give it away. So that way, because I still believe everyone should get a chance. I just don't want that responsibility of being there when they're not ready for what I have. And so I give it all away. It's actually easier for me to give it all away. And then I just implement the done for you. And so really what we've done is I've created my school community as an SOP for my own internal business. And so it's not a whole lot of additional work because I I could give everyone everything I have, my templates, my financial models, my reports, my softwares, all of that and I could tell them how to use it, but they don't have the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience to know. It's like getting an F1 car. Most people won't even know how to turn it on. And so that's why I can give this stuff away because the value is in my team implementing it, which we get paid for.
Yeah, of course. So how does your internal business differ from what you're providing to your clients?
How does our we run our business the way we on what we implement. And so I've created a template to scale service-based businesses. So the same software that we use or the same processes that we use is the same software and process that we implement in our clients' business. And so that way, I can have fractional people working across all these different businesses because the software is the same, the processes is the same, the structures are the same. And that's how we're able to, I say deliver Wall Street level consulting at Main Street prices because everything is in the process. So I don't want to have to hire Harvard MBAs that, want $100,000+ a year plus, I mean, I literally have a color coded system that runs off a dashboard. And if the right, so we do projections in our we have two different offers we're doing right now. It's called the finance department, which is historical accounting, and then we have the advanced one, which is CFO. And so that's going forward. And so we just we have a really solid process, and then it's literally paint by number. And so that way we can keep the overhead low.
Okay. Interesting. So moving on to today's topic, boom and bust cycles, something that a lot of founders kind of fall into. They often start out invisible. Can you walk us through a moment when maybe you internally experienced this? What caused it? What did you change?
When you say invisible, what do you mean?
People get caught in, sell, 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 and then they land all these clients and then they stop doing outreach and they think, I'm making all this money, and then suddenly there's a cliff.
Well, I mean, I was in there 15 years, and so I sold high ticket masterminds, and so I was the sales guy. I was everything. And so it's like you sell, you sell, then you stop and you service, and you got to get back on the sales wagon, then you get back on and it was horrible. And so that was why I created this process of what I did today to get myself out of the business. And I've spent over $1 million on myself between education, coaching, and all this other trial and error aspect. No one, they all talk theory. They're like, oh yeah, this is the theory of scaling and removing yourself from a business, or here's a component of it. I still have yet to see a complete front to back process that helps you understand where you're at, where you want to go, and the plan to get there. And so that's what I created over the years. So it's, marketing is, I learned as a direct salesperson, if you're not marketing and selling, you don't have a business. And that's where I see most people. They're either strong on marketing or sales, the front end, or they're strong on operations. I see very few people that are strong on finance, which makes it so easy for us to, for what we do out there. And so the operators, they're always trying to mess around with operations and tweak that. They need to focus on the sales and marketing, and the sales and marketers need to focus on the operations. And so depending on what your strength is, I would say hire the other one out. Like if you hate sales and marketing, that's okay. Be a great operator, but hire a sales and marketer out there, because if you're the one doing it all, you're going to burn out and you're probably not charging enough. And so it's that whole conversation of, does the thesis of your offer and business actually work at a scalable level with other people working in it? And most people at the lower level, they don't, because they're undercharging and they just can't afford to hire the help then.
And is that something fixable?
Oh yeah, because I
That's
went
what you
through it.
teach, right?
Yeah, and so it all starts off with, what are the numbers? Okay, how much are you selling for, and how much does it cost to service that thing you just sold? Most people don't know their numbers, their true numbers. They get like an idea, some of them, but most of them have no idea what their actual profitability is. Uh, and so I come in and I just measure everything. And I say, okay, hey, you're making this much on that. You're making this much on that. You're losing this much on this. Let's cut that, stop the churn, we call it trim, plug, and fill. Trim the fat, plug the holes, and fill it back up with cash. Then strategize against, is this actually a scalable offer? And I have clients where we had to completely change their business model because it wasn't scalable and they didn't know it.
Wow. It's interesting to see that people can get to a point where they're making 1 to 30 million and it's not scalable.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like scalable at what point? 30 million obviously is already quote unquote scaled.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, I've met people that make $1 million a month gross, but lose money bottom line. But they don't know because they don't have the proper accounting in place. Yeah. So trust me when I say there's a lot of top line. People always are touting their top line revenue, but I see people great top line, zero bottom line.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it sounds like you have a ton of experience in this area. So, and you've helped a bunch of people kind of navigate it. So, how do these kind of boom periods affect the team's focus, and how do busts kind of hurt morale?
Yeah. So the boom it can be sort of great, but at the same time, it can be, if it's not organized, it'll be chaos. And I everything I talk about, I experience firsthand in my own businesses. And so most people don't have a plan. And so what they do is they operate off emotions, and they operate off of what is on their schedule for that day. I hate operating like that, because I have a team, I have clients, and it's like, I need structure, I need vision, I need my team to understand what's important, I need my team to understand what they need to do, and the only way to do that is create a plan. And so we have really a 10-plus year plan in my business, and that is one of our big deliverables inside of our CFO program. Is like, where do you want to be in 10 years? Where are we driving this to? Because if you're at $1 million right now and you're bringing home $400,000 and you're happy, fantastic. Like, don't stop. Let's invest in some real estate. I still enjoy working. And so, you're making $400,000 a year, buy some real estate. In the next 5 years, you won't have to work. If that fits who you want to be in this world, fantastic. And so I think that's another thing, is just we call it the vision to reality process. It's like, where are you? Where do you want to go? This in your personal life. And so for me, it was traveling the world, helping people and making money. And so when we really create that line, I call it the baseline, the booms, they're not going to be unexpected, right? It's not going to be like, oh my gosh, we just made $100 extra $1,000. Why would that just come out of nowhere? Right? That's not, in my opinion, It shouldn't realistically happen on a reoccurring basis. And then you flip it on the other coin, and then the same thing with the busts. Okay, well, if you're monitoring your metrics on a regular basis, you should never go bust, right? And you should never have crazy outline booms. Now, I'm being very dramatic here, because obviously, COVID comes. That's something no one could expect. AI is just totally disrupting things. So it's like, but what does that mean for a guy like me? That means let's get in the planning room. We call it the lab. Let's get in the lab and get ahead of this. What are we going to do in the next 6, 12, 18, 24, 5, 10, whatever years? Where are we pointing the ship now with this new information? And then we adjust the plan accordingly. And so that's the best way to manage these boom and bust periods, because we don't want those, because you're going to have to lay people off. You're going to have to hire people. You're going to have, this whole process, it just becomes so exhausting. And your biggest asset is your team. And so, I mean, I have team staff right now that I'm not using, but they're on my payroll because I have 4 years invested in them, and they know my machine. And so it's like, okay, well, where can we put them? How can they be, I call it my A team. So my A team gets dropped into businesses, and we get dropped into like chaos. No, emotional decisions, no plans, no budgets, no metrics. And we help the owners implement that all. And then we put managers in place, or we help them bring in managers. And so that's how I see the world of boom and bust.
Okay. You mentioned where you want to be on a personal level. Where do you want Learn and Grow Rich to be in 5, 10 years? That plan. What's the goal?
Yeah, so my plan is to have it be $1 billion company within 10 plus years, and so we actually have that planned out in we call it the strategic plan, and it has what we need to do to get there, at what price points we need to offer. It's the direction. After a couple years, it's more of an idea, of vision, but over the next couple years, I mean, we got hard numbers that we have to reach in order to do that. And I want it to be, in the world of business development focus with education, still giving out the education for free, with the intention of supporting charities. And so it's our goal by the end of this year to give 20% of what we make on a net level to some charities that we're really passionate about. And that's how I see businesses. This is how we're going to change the world, is having great people with great intentions, make a lot of money, and shave off some for the community, right? Go help the animals, go help people with clean drinking water, whatever it is that you're inspired. Me personally, I'm inspired about kids and veterans.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Charity is really important. I'm actually a member on the board of a local charity here in Toronto that is helping homeless people. You know,
Oh,
we,
that's
we
awesome.
yeah, we pack 3,500 kits and then go do outreach once or twice a year. So, yeah, no, I resonate with
That's
that. That's
beautiful,
good.
man. It's, after making money, I had a goal of travel the world, help people make money, and I accomplished it. I was so disconnected. I was sort of depressed. I was like, now what? And I got on the call with my coach, and we're like, well, let's help people. And so my purpose today is empower people to live an amazing life in all aspects of their life. And my focus is on the 20% of the money I'm going to give away. Now I get to keep the 80,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
But if you just focus on the money, it's like it's so unfulfilling. And so I focus on the give back, which by default gives me more.
Yeah, 100%. You kind of brushed that. How do I say this? Because, I had a goal to get rich and travel the world. You said that so casually, almost like it was an easy task. What are some advice for other people that want to do something like that?
I would say have the vision, define the vision, because I talk to people all day long. I'm like, what do you want? They're like, more money. I'm like, for what? For time freedom to do what I want, when I want, how I want. And I'm like, okay, what do you want? How do you want? And when do you want to do it? And almost no one can answer that. And so I have spent a lot of time and a lot of money on coaching programs that help me define my vision, help me define how do we create that. Because if you don't have the place, the destination, I'm telling you, it's like you'll never get there. And I use the analogy of traveling. People are like, well, I want to travel. I'm like, where? They're like, I don't care. I'm like, well, move 2 feet to the right. Mission accomplished. Well, that's not what I was talking about. I know, because you weren't specific. right?
Okay.
And it takes something, especially if this isn't a regular conversation. I remember I paid a coach $8,000 to ask me, what do I want every week for a year? And for the first 2 months, I couldn't answer it. I was so vague because my brain wasn't like it wasn't in that creative. I'm just so used to this is what your options are, Zach. Go to school, get a job, this, that. And so it really took some critical thinking and to get my brain fired back up and some creativity. And so I would say plan it and then, okay, I'm sorry, get the destination and then you just go back into the plan. And so for me, I knew that traveling the world, I needed to learn online marketing. It was like, I have to figure out how to make money remotely, online. And so I just started pouring myself into CRM systems, classes, ad spends, all of this stuff that it takes to run an online business. And then, and then do the work. And here's the thing, you have to learn how to sell. If you cannot sell, never going to happen, right? I don't care if you're an operator in the W-2 world, you still have to sell yourself to get that job, that remote job. Because there's so many talented people around the world. And if you're working remotely, you're competing against other people who are working remotely that work way cheaper than anybody from the US and Canada will. And so all of my team actually is typically mainly South American. I got a couple people over in the Philippines. My accounting team's in India, but I pay them very well. And it's nowhere close to what Americans and Canadians would charge. So it's understanding the world that you say you want.
Okay. So, what would you recommend to someone that wants to learn and get better at selling? What are a few steps they could take, this week?
I would say go find something great to sell. Like I think this is I love frameworks, and so I said there's four ingredients to making money. The first one is you need a problem. The second one is you need a solution. The third one is you need another person, and the fourth one is you need an exchange of value, which is money, right? If you do not have those four, you will not make money. It's physically impossible. I've thought about this so many different ways because I teach people every day for the last 10 plus years, and they don't know how to make money. They don't know that it starts with marketing and then it flows to sales. And if there's no sales, there's no money. Most people say they hate sales. I used to be one of those people because I didn't understand it. And today is like money does not get made unless a sale occurs. And so it's like, well, what are you really doing? You're not. Have you ever seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street?
Of course.
Uh, where they have the pen? It's like
Yeah,
that's such a like if you don't need the pen, I'm not going to talk to you about buying a pen, right? There's no problem for your solution. And so this is why find something you're really great at. For me, it was finance. I was like, okay, finance. Is there a lot of problems out there in the world around finance? Oh my gosh, CPAs and bookkeepers, it's horrendous to try to find one. I was paying $20,000, $30,000 a year for one, and they were horrible. They were late, they were behind, no communication. And so it's like, okay, what's the solution that your highest valued solution? What's the product? What's the price point in the marketplace, and can you make money from it? And then you ever heard of the cash flow quadrant? So Robert Kiyosaki, he has this idea called cash flow quadrant. It's U2, then you move to self-employed, then you move to business owner, and then you move to investor. And I see it as U2 teaches you the skill set. So what I learned in my W2 was finance. I learned valuation. I learned mergers and acquisitions. I learned, all of these skill set activities. And then I became self-employed and I learned how to sell the skill set. And then I moved to business owner, which was the systemization of selling the skill set, right? And most people, what they do is they'll have a really high valued skill set and they want to jump over to another skill set that they know nothing about. And they have to relearn that process. I see it every day. And so it's like, I would say the fastest thing to do in the next week is determine what's your highest paid solution to the marketplace and how do you sell it?
Okay.
It just the basics of it. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, we're actually out of time here, but thank you so much. It was an incredible conversation today.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for having
joining
me,
the
man.
podcast.